Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. From or wherever you're watching us from, this is African Climate Story Forum, where we talk about everything African and, of course, everything climate. Now, what are we looking to achieve? We're hoping to empower climate stories and make sure that people are hearing our stories that are being told by ourselves. We want to tell our stories by ourselves, and we also want to create a community where other African storytellers can actually come and have collaboration and also have a place, a safe space where they can and have a place where they can genuinely talk about their struggles and also find solutions and find that love. We are also after knowledge. We are also after empowering people, not just with the needed ingredient, but also giving them that moral support that they need. And as part of commemorating the Women's Day, International Women's Day, this is a special edition. And you know that when women gather, hmm, you know that interesting things are bound to happen. And I'm sure that, of course, impactful solutions are going to be here for as many storytellers that are with us this afternoon. And this is Felicia, of course, and I'll be your host, and I'll not be doing this alone. Okay, we'll be doing this with three beautiful and inspiring young women doing beautiful things here in Africa. And for me to you, just know that you're in for a banger. Like the band you say, you're in for a banger. And we are bound to have fun. And today we've been joined by three wonderful women, just like I said. And we'll be looking at the topic, how to make our environmental and climate story stand out. But before we go into all of all of the stories and all of the oh yeah, let's get to meet our speakers. Now, the first person I'll be talking about is Sharon Mutende. I hope I'm correct. She is a dedicated Pan African communication and advocacy practitioner with a passion for environmental justice. Now, with focus on environmental storytelling and education, she excels in translating complex policy information into accessible format for local communities. And as an environmental defender, Sharon actively participates in environmental diplomacy spaces, advocating for the representation of youth, women, and local communities in policy making arenas. Sharon, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
All right, so I'll move quickly to Rebecca Lekwa. Now, through a newsletter, The Real Story, Rebecca has championed climate education as she has over 700 LinkedIn subscribers where she introduces climate story through engaging Afrocentric narrative, raising awareness about climate issues. Recently, she earned a coveted spot in the Future Female Leaders in Engineer program, which is a prestigious initiative founded by the UKA Direct as part of a transformating energy access platform in collaboration with the African Management Institute and the University of Cape Town. Rebecca, this is impressive and it is also nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Felicia.
All right, to Pamela, the lady with a touch of Nigerianness in her, Okutoyi. She is a seasoned climate and communication specialist with a robust background in impact storytelling, brand marketing, and sustainable development. She is the founder of Eco Mindset magazine and runs a newsletter on LinkedIn. She has led many successful impact projects in various sectors: agriculture, entrepreneurship, and environmental conversation. Pamela, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Felicia. Sorry, I was speaking with my mic on
Uh,
mute.
okay, all right. So remember that you can join the conversation. Just drop your comment, leave your question. We are here for you. We are here to make sure that we satisfy every single question and every single thing that might be bothering you about climate and environmental storytelling. Country maybe have one difficulty or the other, you can just drop your comment and then drop your question, or probably the speakers are saying something and you don't really understand and you need more clarity. Just drop your comment, and we'll pick it up from there. Like I said, today we'll be looking at how to make our environmental and climate stories stand out. That is what we are going to do. Um, and I would like to start, before we go into all of the story, all of the strategy, and all of those things. I would like to ask first of all, um, from each and every one of you, from Pamela to Sharon. We are glad to also have you, Mayokun Adeleye. To drop your name and your location when you're dropping your comments or your question. That will help us as a community here at Africa. So I'd like to hear from all three of you. Was it that you were sleeping and an angel appeared to you and said, Pamela, Sharon, Rebecca, it's now time to tell the African story? So I'd like to hear from you in like 1 minute each. For all three of you, what was the inspiration behind starting, climate change and environmental storytelling? So I'll start with Pamela, then we'll go to Sharon, then we'll go to Rebecca.
Wow. Okay, thank you so much. So for me, it wasn't an angel that came to me and spoke to me in a dream. Pamela, now you wake up. The dream is here. No. So I actually started my climate storytelling after I finished my first degree. So I did environmental studies for 4 years, and after the 4 years, I didn't know anything about sustainability. And I'm from I'm from an environment class. Just get me right. I'm not saying the degree was wrong, but that is the time the hype about sustainable development goals was coming up, and there was so many things that were going on. There's so many conversations, which as a student of environment, I am supposed to be at the top and helm of those conversations. I'm supposed to know what's going on, what is climate change. I came to learn about climate change after I finished school. So that I got an internship with an environmental organization, and they were working on sustainable development goals. So they're like, you're a student of the environment, you should know these things. They just assume you should be aware of these things. But unfortunately for me, I can say school really didn't teach me the things that I know right now about climate and about the sustainability. So it got me thinking, how can I be in school for 4 years and I don't know anything for sure about what's happening and the real conversations in the world? So that got me thinking, and that's how I started the eco mindset. I actually started the eco mindset just to clear the air for other people like me who will be like, what is climate change? What is this thing happening to us and everyone else? So just to create awareness. And that's how it has transitioned even in my career. And I ended up in climate storytelling just to help other people understand and care about that climate.
Okay, that's very interesting. Over to you, Sharon.
All right. So for me, my climate storytelling journey started as when I was taking up a course in journalism, communication and journalism. Took me 4 years. After the 4 years during my internship, I interned at UNEP. So it was a very big deal for me. I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but I was not very sure what my niche would be. And just being an intern at UNEP made me realize that when we are talking about environmental governance, there are very different angles that that can come with environmental governance and also the awareness creation. That's when I realized that for communicators and journalists, it is very important for us to tell stories so that we create awareness among the communities. And as a person who has been struggling, not really struggling, as a person who has been very introverted since I was very young, I kept finding myself in places where I listen more than I talk. So by listening more, I came to introspect a lot and to find different angles of writing stories. And during that internship is when I even competed to participate in a workshop about natural resource governance within the East and Horn of Africa, and through writing, and that was really impactful to me. And I went ahead and became a volunteer for an organization called Population Media Center that uses edutainment to focus on the issues of population and environment. So with that, I just developed my interest and ended up pursuing a master's in environmental policy at the University of Nairobi.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Thank you so much. Rebecca, let's hear from you.
All right, thank you, Felicia. So for me, I have a background in engineering. For my first degree, I studied electrical electronics engineering. So I pretty much had introduction to energy access, introduction to the technical side of things, right? But I've always been a storyteller at heart. Growing up in Nigeria, I remember going to my auntie's room and picking out her novels to read. I was always a fan and still a fan of Chinwe Achebe and most of the African literature. So I grew up on reading African literature and I always enjoyed it. To me, African stories were always so well told, so well detailed, and they were easy for me to relate to. So coming into climate and storytelling within climate, it was like a nexus between two things that I actually genuinely love, which is energy access and of course storytelling as well. So it just seemed like the best thing ever. And just like what Pamela said at the very beginning, although I have a background in engineering, it took me a while to really understand what climate change is or the effect of it in the environment. And as soon as I learned that, I started to ask questions. How come no one is saying anything about this, considering we're in Africa and we're the most affected by it, right? So for me, storytelling was the best way to communicate that because I have a lot of friends that are not engineering inclined, so they tend to not understand what I'm talking about when I start to use the jargons in quotes. So storytelling was the easiest way to get people to understand what I was saying and how important it was. So for me, that's how I found myself here.
All right, thank you so much. That is interesting. I like the fact that each and every one of you is coming from, is coming from a place of the unknown. You're coming from the known space, and you're being able to transform everything that you know from the known space and then take it out to the world unknown. Thank you so much. And for our audience, of your comment. Someone say, I am Narat Gang from Jos. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember that you can drop your question and we'll answer it, just to make sure that you are satisfied, okay? Okpeni is joining from Ogun State now. Thank you so much. We see you. Abib is also joining us from Kwara State, Nigeria. Thank you so much. As your comment are coming in, questions, clarity, we will be taking it, okay? Because if you don't get satisfied, well, then why are we here? Okay. So then I would like to ask, when we talk about storytelling, there are things that make a compelling storytelling. Okay.
Yeah.
There are things that people will see, okay, and say, this is actually compelling. So, what in your own space, what do you think makes a compelling climate story? And then how can storytellers effectively convey, the urgency and importance of climate issues, especially in Africa? Anyone can answer. Okay. Should we do Sharon first then?
All right. I accept the honors of being the first one. So for me, I would say, first of all, I will start with agreeing. Like we all agree that we are grappling with the triple planetary crisis of biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate change. And it is important for us to tell stories, especially African stories, for people in our continent and even people not in our continent to relate, to understand what we are going through. And there are different facets of the climate crisis. People are dealing with that differently from different continents. So telling the African story is very important. Um, for me, the first thing that will make a story very compelling is the human aspect of it. As much as facts are very important, just talking about facts is not going to really showcase the depth or whatever the crisis is all about. So having the human aspect of the climate crisis being told is very important. Um, for the human aspect of it, we can deal with the emotional appeal, which mainly when we for women, now bringing in the gender aspect of it, women usually respond very well to the emotional appeal, and men will respond to the facts.
Facts,
So
yeah.
as much as you're talking about the looking at a child who is not able to get water, a woman who is not able to provide to get food for their children. We also, if you tell that story to a man, they want to know the facts. How many people, yeah, and where did you get this data from? Those are the things that they will ask you. So having the human-centered aspect of it is very important. And also we need to be very accurate while telling these stories. You cannot just come up with something that is fiction and try to talk about it. Of course, you're just watering down your authenticity. The other thing that we can also talk about is, what are the solutions? As much as we might be tempted to only focus on the negative aspects, are we providing the solutions? What solutions are we bringing to the table as Africans? And are these solutions speaking to the needs of the African people? So I think for a compelling story, those are the three very important aspects that we need to talk about. And also, the last one will be, what is the call to action? We cannot just be giving information. What do you want the population to do? What do you want policymakers to do? What do you want your government to do? Activists and academia, what would you want them to do? So I think those are the four important things that I think a compelling story needs to have, a climate story needs to have.
Okay, all right. You've touched. You're having a. I see the journalism aspect of you coming out. Thank you so much. Um, Sharon, do you have like I said, Sharon, because you have like little addition, anything you feel like okay, we can also do this and add this to make a compelling story.
Okay. Sharon has pretty much touched most of the things I would have said, but from a storytelling point of view, I would say to answer that question would be to first ask what makes any story compelling, really. So, as much as we're telling stories within the climate space, we're telling stories just like every other person, right, in the entertainment industry. And you see how much attention they pay to details, right? Because your readers want to be able to picture what you're describing, right? Unlike storytelling when it comes to videography, right? When you're writing a story, you want to be able to translate what you had in mind to your audience or to your readers, right? So the idea is you want to provide as much details as possible, but just enough for them to create an imagination, just for them to put together an imagination of what you're trying to describe, but not too much that it bores the reader. It becomes like a lengthy read, right? So good stories are made up of details, enough details for the reader to make conclusions on their own, but enough to keep them reading. So when you're writing a compelling story, you want to focus on the characters. You want to give details that makes it look like um, your reader is looking at a painting and you're describing each aspect of that painting, right? You want your reader to be able to say, okay, I mean, there's a difference between a boy was sitting on the bench and you saying, and he sat down slowly while looking at the raindrops. Now, just between those two sentences, you listening to me, you're already imagining someone sitting down and there's rain, and based on each person's imagination, you can imagine it to be in a village, you can imagine it to be in a city, but you get what I'm trying to say, and it's compelling and it's interesting for you to read. So you want to make sure as much as possible that your readers are drawn in and are kept reading with every sentence. So that's what I'll pretty much add to what Sharon have said.
All right, thank you. I see my Kenyan people coming in strongly. Peter, thank you so much. He says he likes the conversation already. Thank you. Okay, and Miracle is saying good stories are made up of details that makes your readers still till the end. And I think that was what Rebecca emphasized on and gave flesh to. And I also saw Shayat from Kenya too. Thank you so much. I saw Emmanuel MBA. Thank you so much for joining us. And I saw Awuni Michael. Thank you so much. Okay, somebody is making an appeal. Of course, the session will be recorded and then you can go back on YouTube to watch. Yes, of course, it will be recorded. So, Pamela, is there anything you would like to add to what you said already?
I think much has been said, and if I have to add something, I'll just add a trick that I use when I'm writing about climate, and that is I have three C's. I work with three E's. So the three E's for me are always: does your story educate anyone? It doesn't have to educate everyone, but does it educate anyone? Just one person. Does it empower? Does it empower that person to do anything? Is it saying anything that that person needs to do? And finally, does it engage? Does it prompt them to engage in something? So for me, those are three E's that I really focus on. In addition to what Rebecca and Sharon just listed earlier, and maybe just to add on the other part of what can we do to ensure that the story is actually compelling. And I think I'll be emphasizing is ensure it's relatable. Is it relatable to the people that you're talking to? So if you're not, people love to follow people who they can identify with. It's okay when Kim Kardashian can mobilize a million people, but again, for climate, I feel we are not there yet. So for you in your local place, can people identify with your story in the way that you're sharing? And also, is it encouraging positive change? I know climate change it's a lot negative, and that's it. But we need to see where is the limelight. How can we get there? Can someone imagine it better? Those are things that we can make our stories, climate stories, very compelling. And I think the other part that I feel like, even for myself, I think I need to do more is to be fun. I know the generation that we are talking to currently, it's a generation that loves to be lively, fun, engaged. And if you don't talk to them in that language, they'll miss out for real. I know, again, climate change is a hard topic. It's complex. It's really difficult for us to find that fun part. But again, how about we find ways of creating other forms of content that are more fun, like a short clip video of things not to do, things that might happen when we don't like make try to be a little fun in our stories so that we get the message. And also, climate is not a battle that is only fought by international organizations, people who like big organizations. Try to make your story home, bring your story home, so that when someone in the one bedroom house, they're just seated and they're like figuring out. So you're talking about these big companies. What's my part? Because I feel it's a big conversation. So people just feel like, okay, let them do what they have to do. But if you make it localize it, even individualize it, if that's an English word, like how can someone, as small as they may be, take part in that journey? And when we connect those stories around that and everything else that as Sharon has shared. I think we can get there. So those are things I can
Mm.
add.
Okay, all right. I see that Pamela has a little bit of Gen Z in her, and she's like pushing me to ask the next question. Yes, and the irony of the thing is, whether you are a Gen Z or you're a Generation Alpha or you're a Millennial, the climate change is affecting us almost the
Yeah.
same way. So now, you said something about entertainment, which brings me to my next question. How can storytellers, I'll start with you, Pamela, begin to
Mhm.
leverage, especially climate and environmental storytellers, begin to leverage on platforms, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things, podcast, you know, it's even rare to see podcasts that have to do with climate and environmental stories. So how can we begin to leverage on this platform to reach diverse audience and also maximize the impact that we are supposed to get? I'll start with you, Pamela.
Okay. Thank you. So first of all, it will be very mean for me to talk about storytelling without talking about digital. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
when you're telling a story, you're not telling your story to lie with you in your house. When people write books, they sell the books. They put them in where people can find books. So people can find books in bookstores, in libraries. They sell them on Amazon. People have to buy take your story where people are reading the stories. So one of the platforms that is really going to be a game changer, and it's not going to stop anytime soon, is the digital media, to be honest. So if you're a storyteller like me, I know the digital space is so noisy, it's very crowded. But again, the things that we've talked about, how to make your story compelling, those are the things that will make your content stand out. Because you need to stand out. Remember, when you're telling a story, you're not just a standard person. If you want to be average in the climate space and just, because you need to have a goal, that why are you even telling that story in the first place? So don't count yourself as an average. You're already up there. So to be able to just scale that space, it's noisy, but we've already said climate storytellers are standing out, because the story you are telling is something that it's not for the few or for the privileged, it's for everyone. So we're already standing out. So digital media, and don't go to all platforms, please
Mm.
don't go to all platforms. That would be like my first thing before even telling you what platforms and how to leverage them. So what platform do you relate to easily, or what platforms do you feel the people you want to talk to are? Those are things you need to consider before even going on that platform, because once you get on that platforms and you don't know who is on that platform, whom do you want to speak to on that particular platform, your message will be redundant, to be honest. So if you're talking about energy, you're talking about fashion, you're talking about sustainable waste, where are those people that you want to? I know it's everyone, but also again, you're speaking to a specific niche. So look for
Mm.
platform that and also you understand well. Because if I go to TikTok today, I put one video, tomorrow I'm not there. TikTok needs you to be very consistent with it, because someone will be like, my FYP does not bring you anymore. So please stop disturbing me with your climate things. But if you're consistent, it needs you to be fun. Are you fun? Please, those are things that
Mm.
you need to look at when you're doing such things. It needs you to be playful, have some energy. But that's how you win on TikTok. Those are some of the things to consider. And then people, so that you don't go there and then you're like, these guys just want me to be fun. You start arguing with the platform. You can't change the system. The system is already there. So if you go to LinkedIn, these are businesses. These are people, professional people who want to be in a certain addressed in a certain way. So when you go there and you're posting a TikTok video, how do you want me with my professionalism in my suit and tie to relate to that at that point? It's just at that point. They might relate to it when it's on TikTok, but they will not relate to it. And this is very true, by the way. There's a video when you get this person on TikTok, they're two different people. I'm one of those people. When I find some content that is supposed to be on Instagram, on LinkedIn, I'll be looking at that person's profile and I'm like, oh, are you really serious? Yeah, so identify a platform that you easily relate to and you actually understand, and then choose that
Mm,
platform. Two is your content. What type of content do you want to share? Because that carries
mm,
a very a massive part of it. The messaging, because every platform, every anything you share on the platform is content and it's a message. So what's your message? And then don't just post and then leave it. Make sure you have an action in it. Goes back to the three E's that I mentioned. Is it educating anyone? If it's a fun video, yes. Things that climate, when climate goes down, things that would happen. When like those fun, is there a goal with that message? And then are you empowering? Like go back to the three E's that I mentioned earlier. Is it engaging? So those are things that you consider when you're creating your content. And then time. How much time do you have actually to be on that social media, on that platform? If you don't have time again, please select a platform that, I don't know, if you want to go to Twitter, now X needs you to be very conversant with the conversations that are coming up so that you trend. Are you the person to keep up with trends? If you're not a person to keep up with trends, climate, we're trying to put climate a trending topic and a discussion that everyone can continue conversing on. So if you can't do that as well, maybe those are things that you need to talk. And then one more thing that I'll just put out when you're considering and using digital is to ensure you have facts, your facts right, because misinformation is the biggest disease that is on digital. And if you go there and then just go with the bandwagon of everything else that is happening, facts and fact check your information, whatever you put in there, that's what will make you stand out. Because if you're selling lies to people, if you're selling stories that you're not sure about, how will this platform trust you? And we need them to make change, because I know people want to relate with easy what content, but make sure you get your facts right. If you're featuring any experts, are they reliable people? Are they people that actually they can stand for their word and put it out there? Authenticity will save you on digital. It's noisy, but when you're authentic, the right people, the people who
mm,
are for you, will get you. I think let me not
mm.
continue that and just leave for my partners.
Yeah, thank you so much. Rebecca, can you just like, coming from yours kind of, for me, your background sounds like, all those people who call Efiko. If you are in the Nigerian space, they are people that will call the bookworm, aka Efiko. So, for someone that is, for me, your background sounds kind of, I'm a serious person. And for someone like Sharon, I was like, no, please let me not talk. Please let me not talk. Just, you know, and then you want to leverage on social media. What do you think? Seeing that you have been there, done that. I want you to talk from an experience point of view this time. Okay.
Okay.
How do we
Thank you,
leverage on
Felicia.
social media? Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Felicia. And I would say Pamela did a fantastic job. I would just piggyback on something she mentioned, how you need to know what each platform looks like and what your
Mm,
audience would go for. For me, I have a platform, or I'm building a platform on LinkedIn, right? I guess that goes with my personality, or at least like what Pamela
yeah.
said, the Rebecca you find on Instagram is different from the Rebecca you find on LinkedIn. And it's just playing the game and knowing where you are and knowing how to speak when you are in certain places, right? So for me, I'm building a platform on LinkedIn. So I have a newsletter where I post out stories related to climate, and then I go for that to explain what some of the terminologies that might be new to my readers, right? So you have to know. For me, I decided to go with LinkedIn because it just goes with my personality. It's easier for me to be serious in quotes. Plus, I have background
Mm,
in that sense, so I have technical expertise, right? So I want to be able to explain the big words to people that are not within my industry, right? So I picked LinkedIn because I'm not about to be posted TikTok videos every other day. Maybe sometime, but not now. So I picked my battles carefully, right? So I would say if you're going into it, just like what Pamela said, based on the time that is available to you, based on how much knowledge is available to you, based on the tools you're well aware of, right? You should pick the platform you want to tell your story. What is important is that you're telling the story, right? If you're in a platform where people typically go for fun content, right, you want to be able to translate the big words and translate the seriousness of the matter you're saying into something fun, something that is sort of like a bite size that people can easily just take. It's not a lot, right? Then you're going to TikTok, you're going to Twitter, right? But if you're the kind of person to write lengthy articles, you're the kind of person to write lengthy captions, you should probably try out LinkedIn, because the people that would generally
Mm.
interact with such content are there. The people that have the technical expertise to engage in such conversations, they are there. They have the time as well, and they have the interest already. So they are there. That is your preferred audience, and you should go for that, right? But I want to see more people translate climate storytelling from just writing to more videos, because just like we know, the attention span of humans are slowly and very quickly depreciating, right? So nobody, not even me that I'm a writer, has a lot of time to read lengthy articles anymore. People want to get information fast and quick and on the go, right? So I would like to say, if you're stepping into the world of climate storytelling, right, let's see more videos. How are you able to translate what you can write in an article into a video that people can see what you're saying, not just read about it? They can see the effect of what you're actually saying, right? And this can start with simple things like showing people what's going on within your local community. How is climate change affecting your own life? Right? How is climate change affecting your neighbor's life? How is climate change affecting your local community? It becomes relatable, just like what the other speakers have touched on, right? Your story becomes relatable, and then people can actually be engaged in what you're saying. So I would say that would pretty much be what you would want to focus on.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So we don't overflow this, okay? If you're just joining us, this is African Climate Story Forum, where we talk about everything climate. And if you're wondering, where are the ladies in the house? Well, it is our month, and we feel like women need to gather. And of course, when it touches climate, I think that we should also, say our story by ourselves so that people can know how it is affecting us. Remember that you can send in your contribution, drop your name, your location, and also drop your question. Okay, we'll answer your questions for you. And just to remind you, African Climate Stories, we are on all social media platforms, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, African Climate Stories. So do well to like, follow, and also subscribe. We're on YouTube, African Climate Story. You can also subscribe, and if you're looking forward to the recorded version, of course, there will be a recorded version that will be uploaded very soon. And if you are into any kind of advocacy, please let us know. Environmental or climate advocacy, let us know what kind of stories are you telling, and are there challenges that you are, you know, going through. Will also like to know. Why do we want to know? As African Climate Stories, we have what we call the African Climate Story of the Month. That is the African Storyteller of the Month. Okay. Um, and then what we do there is to feature African climate storytellers every month. We feature their stories, we feature what they've been doing, the advocacy that they've been carrying out. So you can as well drop yours on the comment section, and also help us by dropping a link to your story or stories so that we can go there, check it out, and you know, let it go vis-a-vis our criteria for picking the African Storyteller of the Month, and then we'll be able to pick you. So all you need to do is to tell us what kind of advocacy you're doing or what kind of story that you are telling. Drop your name, your location, and drop the link to any of your story or stories that we can go through. Now, we talk about, it's our month and all of those things. Oh, thank you so much, Alima, for joining us. She says she's a lover of storytelling, and learning to tell a climate story is refreshing to her. And she's joining us from Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Alima. I remember attending a data and something climate and how it affects women. And I was blown away that climate storytelling climate change rather, has like a very high significant effect on women, and nobody is telling this story. So now I want to learn. I'll start with Sharon. What strategies can we begin to employ to make sure that our climate stories are inclusive, they are representative, and they are sensitive, to the experiences of marginalized community, or can we say marginalized gender? I'll start with you, Sharon.
All right. So, as a person who works with women in the front lines of the climate crisis, I have a lot to say about this. But first, women are among the MAPA. It's called MAPA, most affected people, yeah, and societies, the ones that are affected by the climate crisis. So to make sure that our stories are inclusive, especially when it comes to marginalized communities, one of the things that we can do is make sure that you're getting perspectives from the women themselves. Let's say you're talking about women, get your perspectives from the women themselves, not from hearsay. Um, Make sure that you're doing research, you're interacting with the people in the front lines or the target that you're going to write about. And mostly when it comes to spaces, advocacy spaces, and let's say policy making spaces, we say that we want a seat at the table. But as a climate storyteller, one of the things that you do is write these stories. For example, there was that issue about the carbon markets and Zimbabwe, and a company taking over Zimbabwe. And so there are people, communities whose livelihoods are in the forests that are being taken away. How do you ensure that when you're telling these stories that you have the perspectives of these people who are not even included in the decision making during such choices? So talking to these people, having interviews, going to the ground. Yeah, that is a word we commonly use in Kenya for ground. You're going to the ground and just hear these stories, know how they're being affected, what are the implications of whatever is going on to their livelihoods, and just making sure that you're having an intersectional angle when it comes to the stories that you're telling. That really goes a long way to make sure that there is inclusivity. Another thing, as Pamela has said, you cannot fail to incorporate the digital aspect in climate storytelling. Just the interviews, make sure as much as you're a writer and you're trying to write about these stories, you can repurpose your content and make sure that you're featuring these interviews on the digital platform so that people can share their lived experiences. So it's the lived experiences increase to the authenticity that we earlier on talked about. So just making sure that these voices are truly a true representation of whatever is going on the ground is a very key aspect to make sure that your story is very inclusive.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Pamela, can we hear from you? Your mic is muted.
I just noticed that. So I was saying, I'll just add to what Sharon has mentioned. And for me, you've had me talk more about young people. And so we're talking about marginalized people. So we have women, young people. I'm more aligned with young people. So I would add to that is just ensure facts are right. Facts are good. Facts are really good. But you know what else is good? Experience. Experiences are really amazing. So if you can marry your facts and and the experiences of the people that you're talking to, That's a very good union. Imagine there's no you're not divorced. There's no divorce in that union. So how about you look at it that way? So you're looking at these women, at the young people, meet them at where they are, the experiences. Let them share. Of you're sharing the story, but let them tell the story themselves. That is authenticity that will save you a lot of time, and it will make your message get to the people that you want to talk to. And then the other thing that I will say, I'll go back to my other point when we were just starting out, is people relate to the people they know. So these are marginal. If you bring another woman to talk about their experiences, share their stories, I'm more likely to relate to that and act and uh, like look at my lifestyle and say, what else can I do as a woman in that space, as a young person? And then share, don't just share the bad things. Rebecca shared earlier about sharing how climate change is affecting, which is good because that's what's happening. How about now share the stories of what has happened and how has that changed? Be progressive in the stories that we're sharing. Okay, there was a flood. Don't leave your story at that. Okay, that was the first part of the story. Okay, come back with another story on, were these people given places to shelter? What happened? Like, share progressive stories in our climate storytelling. Like, those are things that people, those marginalized women, they want to know. The last time you're in that community, you were talking about them not having water and having to walk long miles. Is there something you can find in that community that someone has started? I'm sure there are solutions everywhere. And solutions, people, it might not be in that particular community, but at least you have identified a problem. Is there a solution in a different community, or another young person or another woman who is trying to solve that? Bring it to them, bring that story to the limelight, and be like, this is now what has this is what um Pamela is doing in Kenya. Sharon, you can duplicate the same wherever you are. Share such stories. We don't want, in climate storytelling, we don't want one story. We actually want a universe of these stories, and this sharing these success stories of these individuals will actually help us get there. Yeah, that's what I have to
Okay.
add.
Now I would like Rebecca to say something, but then I'd like to infuse it with my next question. Which is telling stories that are, taking unique angles of stories that have not been covered. Are there new climate stories? Are there new climate situations that Africans are not even aware of? And then how can we begin to make them less boring? And this time, we all have been saying this and this and this, and I want us to employ saying, let's employ it now. Let's employ it now in this conversation. Can you tell us, some of can you like paint a picture to us now that could let me know that, oh, there are new climate stories? Probably there's somebody listening that is saying, people are just talking, just give me an example, so that I'll be able to get, I'm not reading somebody's mind, so that I'll be able to get what Rebecca is saying. So can you like tell us, yes, are there new stories that we are not aware of? And then how can we begin to tell these stories in a way that they are less boring by doing like something practical right now?
Okay. Thank you, Felicia, for that question. Actually, there are. I would say, typically when people talk about storytelling and climate, for me, the first thing that comes to my mind is some sad story of somebody really, experiencing hardship. It always just starts out like that, right? And for me, I'm sick and tired of hearing that story. Right, because I currently I currently work to support entrepreneurs who are in clean tech, right? And I've seen guys come up with the most innovative solutions here in Nigeria. It's so beautiful to see, I must say. And I keep thinking, when we talk about climate action and when we talk about mitigation and all of that, how come we're only showing the effects, how people are so, they're just, it's always just some depressing video and some depressing audio to go with it, right? Meanwhile, there are people within those local communities that are actually concerned, and not just concerned, they are taking it a step further by coming up with innovative solutions to address these things, right? How come we're not shedding more light on those people and the actions they are taking, right? And I'm not just referring to entrepreneurs like the ones within the program that we currently run at the Global Clean Tech Innovation Program. I'm also talking about community members, right? There are people that they don't own companies, but they're just concerned, right? And they think, oh, why don't we do this? Okay, there was a flood. Why don't we come together to set up new homes for ourselves, to build new houses for ourselves? To why don't we create a drainage here so that it doesn't happen again? Those people are not getting as much attention as the problems that they are solving, right? That's the new angle, right? That's a new angle. And who better else to say these stories than we ourselves, right? Here in Nigeria, we have a saying that goes, is the person that is wearing the shoe that knows where it hurts, right? When it comes to storytelling as Africans, we should be the loudest voices, right? Because, like what Sharon said, women and children are the most affected. But when you come to to Africa as a continent, that number goes up significantly, right? So if we're not telling those stories, not just about what is happening to us and how bad it is, but what we as a people are resilient enough to come up with, then who is going to tell it for us? How do we encourage people that they can do something about what's happening to them? Right. So we're not just going to tell them. I mean, there are a lot of people, when you talk about climate education, right? A lot of people are explaining to you what is going on. But how about telling people what you can do? What is your response, right? Just like what Pamela and Sharon said. When you're telling stories, what's the CTA? What's the call to action? What do you want people to do? Okay, you've told me I have a problem. So, like, what next? Okay, good information, good to know, right? But when you're not just showing the problem, but also showing that, hey, there's someone in this community. He's not even a big organization. It's not like he has access to a huge amount of funds. But you know what? He's able to bring together his community members and say, oh, we can actually come up with a solution to this flood. So that next time when the rainy season starts, we are protected. Now, what you're doing is you're starting a chain of inspiration, right? People are seeing that, oh, okay, somebody can actually do something about this. How about I solve a problem? So maybe my problem in my community is not flooding. Maybe the problem is waste management, right? Oh, okay, I think I can do something. Right. So what you want to do is that the stories you are telling, they're also inspiring people to take action, right? Those are the kind of stories I want to tell a lot more, right? Because working with the entrepreneurs that I have worked with in the last couple of years has shown me that people are doing amazing things, even with the restraints that they have, the constraints that they have, living in developing nations, right? You don't have access to funds. There's a lot of policies that do not actually encourage the development of your business, but people are going ahead to come up with those solutions and pursuing investment, singing their songs, and they're not keeping quiet, right? So I want to see more stories on that. Let's see more African entrepreneurs that are doing amazing things. Let's see local communities that are coming together to come up with innovative ideas to solve the problems that arise up from climate change.
All right, thank you so much. Now, let me go off the radar a little bit, and this is coming from, when you were answering the question. Now, probably because we don't know the importance of us telling our story ourselves. Now, you will listen to some international media outlets and you'll be wondering, why did they twist this story like that? Where is this coming from? Like, are you sure this is, but it's, and then you'll be wondering in your head, where did that come from? So, like, in a minute, I want each and every one of us to tell us, why is it important for Africans to tell African stories? So I'll start with Rebecca, I'll go to Pamela, then Sharon will answer last. Why is it important for us to tell our story our way?
Because nobody would do it better than you. Absolutely no
Mm,
one would do it better than you. Right. Uh, I mean, you live in the country, right? You're the one experience. I'll take an example, right? I currently live in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, right? Born and raised in Nigeria. At this time of the year, if you let me know if you're in the comment section, right? If you're from Nigeria, you would know how hot it is right now. Like it's extremely hot, and we don't have constant power supply. So that's an issue, right? Someone else in the UK, for example, can decide that, I was speaking to a friend of mine who stays in Nigeria, and he was complaining about the weather being so hot. And I mean, there are a lot of factors to go into that, climate change inclusive, right? And the person decides to write a story about it. Whatever the person is going to say would be, like Nigerians say, them say, I heard,
mm,
I heard, someone told me. But if I
mm,
were to write a story about the weather condition in Nigeria now, it wouldn't be someone told me. It would be I
mhm,
experienced it. I have friends that experienced it. My family is currently going through it. Last night I could not sleep because it was so hot and we don't have constant power supply. That story would
mm,
have more emotions attached to it because the person who is telling the story, he's experiencing it as he's saying it, right? So the why should we tell our stories? Because nobody else will do it better than you, right?
mm,
Nobody else will do it better than you. So why wait for someone else to take that responsibility, right? Because it's affecting you. Why don't you speak up? Why don't you tell us how it actually feels? Let us not just stick to the numbers and to the statistics. Oh, one in every five women are this and that. One in every 10 children are this and that. Those statistics, like I always tell people, statistics are great. But you know what I'm really interested in is the people behind the numbers. They have names. They have names. They're not
mm,
just numbers on a research paper, right? And
mm,
those people have a story to tell. Each and every one of them have experienced the effect of climate change differently,
mm,
right? And so they will have different stories to tell. And so those stories will carry emotions. And just like what Sharon said at the very beginning, for women and for a lot of people, actually, they are moved by emotions. People don't just want to hear
mm,
facts. Most of the decisions we make are actually based on emotions, as much as we try
mm,
to argue that fact. They are based on
mm,
emotions. So if you have people that are emotionally connected to the story, telling the story, we would have
mm,
more decisions come out of that. We'll have more actions taken, right?
mm. Yeah. All right. So I got two things. Okay. One is that nobody can tell you like the way we are telling it. And then the two is second one is we'll get more things done that way. Pamela's Miracle is saying I'm from Nigeria and the heat is not playing. I tell you, like my ankle is literally soaked with sweat. But then can you tell us like why is it important from your own eyes, from your own lens? Why is it important that we tell our stories by ourselves?
Okay. So first of all, I'll start by just saying when you're telling a story is because we want to help, we want to provide a guide to someone who wishes to join the climate action. So
Mm,
when we tell our stories ourselves as Africans, and not to repeat what Rebecca has already mentioned, is Africa is a rich cultural country. Hey, God, it's a continent. Don't come for me. I wanted to say Kenya. I just remembered we are diverse. So we have culture. We have reasons why we do what we do. So I'll
mm,
take an example of human wildlife conflict. In the past, like in the past previously, our grandparents, our great grandparents, they coexisted very well with the animals. They lived like the Maasais in Kenya. Even today they still live, they coexist like peacefully with
mm,
wildlife, and that has been on like there are reasons why they do what they do, and that comes to us as Africans. There are reasons why we do what we do. So when someone else comes to tell our stories, they don't have that perspective. they do not have. They'll be like, why is this Masai guy living with the lion? The lion should be they should be a gated conservancy to take care of animals, and then people live be vacated from that place. That is not the story that we have as ourselves. So to add on to, no one else can tell the story better than us. No one understands why we do what we do, how we live, our experiences, our cultural backgrounds. We have that. And once we tell, we let someone else tell that story for us, they take the power, for the power out of us to act. And then you'll be acting on, you'll just be copy pasting what someone else is giving you as a solution. That's not what we want as when you're telling the stories. Because tell a story where people can act with reason, with why they understand why they're doing that. They understand, oh, we need a borehole in this area because we want water closer to home. There are people who don't need that because they're okay with walking a certain mile. They have a reason why that water, the river has been preserved that way. So if someone else tells that story, to be honest, it will not resonate to the people whom they are being affected. And then most people, our indigenous communities, they have those uh, things that they have lived by for years. Instead of just undoing all that, can we work with them? Can we tell that story with them? And then it will be very easy for us to even convince and let them act out of their own will, not as imposing and copy pasting things that are working elsewhere. A community doesn't need solutions that are in Nairobi and yet the way in Lagos. We might not be facing the same challenge. Right now in Nairobi, the bit of rains, Lagos is hot. So we can't have the same challenge at the same time. Let us tell our own stories. And climate storytellers in Africa, I would actually urge us to step up. Step up. I feel so bad when I see someone else publishing our story. I feel so bad. And just as you mentioned, Felicia, like you would read news, you watch news, and you're like, is that Kenya? Is that the same place I'm living in? And I feel agitated because I need to. So go out and tell that story. We can tell everyone's story. That's why we need a lot more people to be able to help us tell that story.
All right, thank you. Sharon.
All right. So for me, why Africans need to tell our own stories is because they have been mentioned, but I feel like because we do not want false solutions. When we do not tell our stories, we get false solutions. And this is not just, like as Pamela said, from a solution for Nairobi being taken to Lagos. It's trickling from up there downwards, from the climate conferences, environmental conferences. There are solutions that we are given as a blanket for the whole world, and they do not know that they are not fit for Africans. So just to avoid the false solution, especially when it comes to nature-based solutions and the likes, we want solutions that are fit for Africans. And this can only happen when we document the fact that some of these solutions that we are given are not working for us. We need solutions that are fit, that are tailor-made for Africans. So the other aspect is also the part of the coexistence between nature and culture, especially in the African communities. This comes from the indigenous knowledge that is within our communities. So the indigenous knowledge, yes, we can marry that with the scientific knowledge, but the scientific should not be the absolute, because even in the past, our ancestors have been using the indigenous knowledge and have been able to work on the climate change issues that they were experiencing. So having a way to show the world that yes, we have our own indigenous knowledge and it has been working, so you cannot negate the fact that these solutions that we are offering are actually solutions that have been working for us. So I think those two aspects are really very important, and also to just mention on the fact of the just transition, which is something that people are really talking about, and Africa bears the burden of making sure that the whole world is transitioning justly, which is not really just because our Congo people are suffering to make sure that people are getting whatever they need to make sure that they are transitioning. Yeah. So I feel that also documenting the stories about the impacts on the ground, let's say in the Congo, how many, like approximately 20 women are raped per every minute in the Congo. So it's some of these stories are going to show the world that as much as we are talking about the just transition and we want this to happen quickly, it is having effects on the African communities and the people who are actually giving us the transition minerals. So I think these three things are very important, why Africans should tell their own stories.
All right, thank you so much. For me, this has been enlightening, and I'm seeing, so many things that you were saying. Sometimes they say when you look at a particular thing, it might look like six to you, but then when another person looks at it, it's nine from their end, and I'm seeing, a little bit of, oh, do this and do that, and I must say that it is interesting. So if you are listening to us, you have questions, do well to drop your questions. Like I said, Pamela, Rebecca, Sharon, they're here to answer all of your questions. Okay, all of it, and then they will help you through. And if you're a storyteller and you're going through a particular unique challenge right now, you can also drop your question or your concern or concerns. They will actually help you. These ladies are experts in their own field with their own wealth of experience. Okay, make sure that you do that. And also, if you have been enjoying what these ladies have been saying, I mean, they've been dropping wisdom upon wisdom. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. They've been dropping it back to back. So do well to drop what you have learned. Drop your name, your location, and what you've been able to pick from, some of the things that the ladies have been saying. Now, when you talk about journalism itself, it always tells you that um detach your emotion from the story. I'm sure Sharon knows what I'm talking about. Don't Nobody wants to hear your view. I remember the first time going on air, and I said I think that, and then my programs manager was like, "Who cares what you think?" For the dynamics of journalism is different. You are able to not, bring your personal opinion. You are not able to bring, what you think into it. For storytelling, I think is a little bit different, and it gives you that dynamics of being able to tell, personal stories. Now, for some that is listening and is contemplating, of someone that is a new storyteller that is contemplating, oh, how do I infuse my personal experience, or what role does personal storytelling play in connecting individuals, to broader narratives of climate change? And then how can storytellers integrate their own stories, my own story, what I've gone through, and then unique perspective into their stories to help us project, the situations around climate change and environmental issues? Sharon, I don't know if you get my question.
Yes, I got your question. So for me, it's like from what Pamela has said, you talk from your lived experience. So, talking from your lived experience, it's easy for you to relate the things that are currently happening to what you have experienced in the past or you're currently experiencing. And one of the things that I usually make sure that I do when I'm writing is saying that this is my opinion from this perspective. Let's say from a climate justice perspective, this is my opinion. So it's important because you tend to relate to whatever is happening. For example, for me, I would say growing up, I grew up in the farm, the western part of Kenya. So growing up, I saw how the seasons were. You could really predict the seasons, the planting seasons. We are always like, this month and this month is for planting, and this one is for harvesting. But later on, after I grew up, my mom tends to have a very difficult time knowing when to plant and when to harvest. So the whole climate change thing happened, and now they're not able to have like food security. So talking from this perspective, you're able to like have a look at whatever is happening and relate it to whatever your lived experience is. So it's important because you develop the relatability. It's important for people to relate with you, to relate with your stories. You become very believable because you're not someone looking from the outside trying to talk about something that you've not experienced. So I think just having your stories within your climate storytelling journey is very important because you become very authentic, very believable, and you're talking about things from experience, not just from hearsay.
I like the last part. You're saying things, from experience, not just from hearsay. Now that's interesting. Rebecca, what role does, my personal story or my experience have to play in telling climate stories and perspective?
Yeah, I think for the case of climate storytelling, it plays a huge role because just like what you said, maybe in journalism, right? You're required to put aside your own opinions and tell the stories as they are, right? But in this space, it's important that people feel your opinions, right? It's important that people hear you say what you think, right? It's important that when you're leading these conversations, you're leading them with your opinions, right? So it's very important that you not just include it as a sprinkle over the story, but it is properly weaved through the story that you're telling. Your personal experience is important. That's what people actually want to hear. If they wanted to hear something else, they would have turned on the news, right? But they want to hear outside of the news, the people on ground, how do they actually feel? How are they actually being affected? So if you're taking the stance of a storyteller, you're basically saying that, you know what, in this community or in this space where people are being affected by this particular thing, I will stand up and be a voice for them. Right. So I mean, is this very reason why storytelling is very important? Because you're able to speak for people who otherwise might not have the opportunity or platform to have their voice heard. Right. So you don't want to go there and then you're just spitting facts, right? You're not going to be representing those people well, right? Because facts are just research, product of research, right? But the stories that those people will tell you. Now, if you go on ground and for example, you go to, like what Sharon said, right? It's the same thing we're experiencing here in Nigeria. You used to be so sure of when the rainy season would come, how long it will last, when it will end, when the dry season will start, and now that's not the case, right? You'll be surprised. I mean, everyone in Nigeria was surprised when rain started falling, and then we're also surprised as to how little we are getting this time around, right? So if I were to tell that story, I wouldn't be talking about how much rain is falling. I won't be talking about the measurement of rain. I don't know that. I don't care about it. What I know is that the rain is not falling when it's supposed to fall. And now it's affecting the planting season. And now it's affecting food in security. That is how it affects me. Right. And that is the stories that people want to hear. Right. So when you're talking about climate storytelling, don't be shy to include your personal experiences. As much, in my opinion, right, I would say if you're going to be a good storyteller, you should be somebody that is open to having new experiences, because you want to make sure that whatever it is you're going to speak on are things that you have experienced, at least even if it's a little bit. So you're not just saying things based on facts. You're telling people, okay, I've experienced this myself, and this is actually what it feels like to be in that situation, right? So within this space, your personal experiences are not just welcomed, they are important. So as much as possible, whether you're telling stories via articles, newsletters, written or videos or pictures even, let it be that it's communicating an experience as opposed to just another facts that people have to listen to.
Okay, all right. I saw a question over there. Probably when it comes back again, would attend to that question. Now, I'd like to go a little bit personal because we're almost running up. Before I ask the last question, now I want to hear from like Pamela, Rebecca, Sharon, like one personal experience that you've heard, as touching climate storytelling, and what impact has it made, and what other things are you looking forward to before I ask the last question for today? Pamela, did you get my question?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I did. So
Okay.
personal. So I'll share
Mm,
something that when I was starting the Eco Mindset magazine at the very onset, the beginning, Rebecca, Sharon have talked extensively on the importance of sharing a personal story. So I shared something personal to me, and it was an experience. It's just an experience. When I was doing my undergraduate degree, environmental, I was very vocal. I used to love these environmental events, going these places. But after graduation, um, I was given a task at my internship regarding sustainability and climate change. I didn't know. I didn't know how to go around that. I honestly did not have knowledge, which is something someone does not expect from an environmental graduate. So I shared this on LinkedIn. I'm very big on LinkedIn as well. So I have a newsletter on LinkedIn, Pam Writes, and the Eco Mindset magazine, where I just talk to fellow storytellers and writers. So I shared this on LinkedIn. At that time when I was starting, and I was like, this is so complex. Like I was so frustrated. Like when you're frustrated, like you want to do something but you're not finding ways, it's just not working. So for me it was very complex, and I felt like there's nothing I'm finding. I'm not finding a solution to this. So I went to rant. I actually went to rant. So I just went there to rant. And in my ranting, I found people are connecting. People are connecting to that. And I think people are coming out and like, yeah, I also feel the same way. Yeah, but have you tried this? Have you tried this? Or maybe, and I just found so many people connecting to that. And it got me thinking, I'm like, okay, so I'm not alone. So this is
mm-hmm,
something. So this goes back to telling your story and how that comes into climate storytelling, and how it will help you, because you get to connect with your people. You get to make people care. You care about the same thing. And then when you share your narratives there, your stories there, then you have an audience that people can go about it. So for me, it actually inspired me. It inspired me to start the magazine. It inspired, and from sharing that story, I got the first two features that I did. I do feature young entrepreneurs, who climate entrepreneurs. I got them from that conversation. So I was able to connect with people at that. It was a vulnerable point where I was just ranting and very frustrated, but it got me to connect with people who care about the same thing that I care about. And even as a storyteller in this space, people assume or want you to have knowledge or answers to everything. Again, don't. You're not the expert, you're not the solution. Sometimes I talk from a point of passion. I'm very passionate about climate action, and I just want to see change. That might be my only inspiration. Like I just want to see change. I seek information from people. I seek information from other resources. I don't have all the answers yet, but because I care about this and I'm very passionate about it, and I can tell a story. I'm a good storyteller. Why not use that and then just inspire people to act. If someone comes to you with a question that you do not understand or you don't have the answers, refer them. That's why you need to do your homework. Like if you're coming to do stories, one thing I'll tell you, it's not a walk in the park. You'll also have to do your homework. Because again, don't come here and talk, tell stories that are already told or repeat, because the copy and paste thing again in stories, Rebecca mentioned earlier about authenticity and telling stories that are real. Like Pamela cannot have the same problem that Sharon has. Uh, Even if there's a connection, it's like maybe it's tea I want and Sharon wants coffee. That small, that tiny bit of information, if you don't have it in your story, so that makes it the personal part is share your personal stories at any point. So that story of mine actually elevated me. I started the eco mindset. I did my first two features from that, and people have been asking more and more of it. And it got me to start looking at stories differently. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I saw a question that had to do with the person said that she's a newbie to sustainability storytelling. Now, like I said, for someone that is, going on the terrain that is new, okay, perfect. This Okweni, and she's asking, as a newbie sustainability storyteller, what would you advise I do to build a strong foundation? Should I take courses, listen to podcasts, intern, do research, or should I just write my stories? So who is willing to answer first?
Can I add
All
something
right.
on that before I drop the mic? Sorry.
Okay.
So I would actually advise her to do all those things she has listed there, but don't beat yourself up again. Start from where are you at this point. For me personally,
Mm,
what helped me a lot is I had a background in environment already, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in the same environmental management, just because I need to seek and understand better whatever I'm talking about and the stories that I'm writing. But even before I got there, I was I'm a lover, or how do you say, a sucker of books or good stories and podcasts. Like
mm,
I used, or I still do listen to podcasts. You're not the only player in the market, and
mm,
in this space, there are people who came before you. There are people who will come after you. Acknowledge, appreciate that, and remember, we are not trying to change, to rewrite the story, or to bring up a new technology or something. So there are people who do better. There are mentors, the people who've written stories. Do you have someone who inspires you when you're writing? Like, there's a way you write, there's a style that you write with. And when you read a book, or Rebecca was mentioning about Chinua Achebe, and she's like, when she says Chinua's book, it's like, yo, I have to get this, because she knows what it, as a writer, you know what resonates to you when Chinua writes. So for you as a
mm,
beginner, is there someone in this space? And just do research. Don't mind the time that it will take to do that. Is there stories that you have read that you feel like this person writes like I would want to write? It's okay to start by following people. Just read us a lot of stories, read them, and then find your space. With this, you can actually mix and see, okay, this, no, I can do that. Okay, this resonates. And then work out your style from them. So from that, you get inspiration. And sometimes you can lack. So go and read. I think I read a lot of stories, by the way. I read a lot. For you to be able to write and tell a story, you have to read a lot of stories, so that you can
mm,
find new angles to tell the stories. You can find, okay, this story they say this, that one they say that. So what if I say something in the middle? It's just a craft. It doesn't work for everyone, but it can also work for you. And also follow. The other thing I will advise is follow these news, the news platforms, because there's a difference between news and stories. My current
mm,
day job is I do communications and storytelling for an investment firm and an NGO called End Poverty. So we have, in my role, there's a communications coordinator, but I also sit on that seat as a storytelling. So the communication coordinator will provide news, and news is like, we have invested 100 shilling, like not 100, like 1,000 US dollars in this number of companies. That's news. As a storyteller, how do you differentiate that? Because you have to use the same news to create a story, and that's where it comes in. the lives, the human beings that are behind those numbers. Who are these people? What are they doing? What's the impact? So read a lot of news sites. You can subscribe. The good thing is nowadays we have newsletters that organizations share. So you can subscribe to this news. Read as feed. You only let out what you feed your system. So ensure you have enough for yourself to be able to share. And then observe like your surroundings, the experiences that you are going on. Those are stories. We just don't know or not telling them yet. But the experiences, people around you, those are your surroundings, are your stories. Maybe just I let Rebecca and Sharon share the rest.
All right. So maybe I can add a few things on what Pamela has said. Um, the first one will be like identifying your niche, because as you begin, that's when you will know where your passion lies. You cannot right now you're talking about beating plastic pollution, the next time you're talking about agriculture, the next time you're talking about the role of women in this and this, the next time it's policy. You have to identify what you want to do, and then now you narrow down. And Pamela has also said that you do a lot of research. Some of the things I would tell you to use for your research will be, right now we can use a lot of AI. AI is there for free. So you can do your research using AI, as long as you're not like duplicating and things like that. Remain original, but use AI to make your work easier, because no one is going to, like, you're not going to receive an award for the hardest working person. Yeah, you have to yeah, you have to leverage on whatever technology that is there. So and also the next thing is you can follow the international conferences, and just to know what the current conversation is about. Especially like you can follow the COPs, different COPs, and then even UNEA, African Climate Summit. You can follow all these international conferences to be able to have information about what is currently going on. The other thing is follow thought leaders. You identify, after you have identified your niche, you follow the thought leaders, like the people who are talking about whatever you're interested in on LinkedIn, especially because that's where the seriousness is. And then also you can follow a few organizations, especially if you want the fun content that Pamela is advocating for. Yeah, like you can follow organizations like Greenpeace Africa. They are really doing the very short videos that they're really catchy. And then the other thing I would say is you can subscribe to things like newsletters, and also personally I use the Google Alerts. So when you use a Google Alert, it will tell you about whatever is happening in that niche that you want. So you will always be getting these things in your email, and then that will make your reading very easy. Yeah.
Okay. I think Sharon went off. Sorry, Rebecca went off. But then, so to Emma said, great job. Thank you so much, Emma. I want to, ask, so that we cap everything up. How can we continue to adapt and evolve in our storytelling approach? Number one, to remain current, and then to remain compelling, seeing that the media space, or the digital space as we put it, is fast paced and fast evolving. So how do we continue to adapt and evolve in our storytelling approach? I want Sharon to go first, then Pamela will answer. Maybe if Rebecca joins us, then she would also input. Your mic is muted. Sharon, your mic is muted.
Sorry. So I was saying it's getting a little bit darker here in Nairobi. So you bear with us when you see, when you stop seeing us very clearly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the ways that can really fit into the changing media landscape is by adopting a very futuristic way of thinking in terms of yes, we are here right now. This is the crisis that we're experiencing, but what are we going to experience in the future? So that even as we're telling our stories, they have the longevity. We have a way of making sure that your story can be reread and repurposed for even future generations. And I think one of these things, like right now, we are looking forward to having the Summit of the Future, whereby the conversation around the SDGs is changing to something more like an action, a document. And one of the aspects is having intergenerational equity and justice within whatever that we are working on, like the future that we want. And an environmental aspect is one of those things. So making sure that we are having this equity and intergenerational equity aspect, even as storytellers, making sure that we are speaking even to the children, because the kids are the ones that are going to inherit the current world in the future. So just having them in our storytelling is very important. And then I think the other aspect that I'm very big on is the intersectionality. You cannot, like, environment is not a standalone kind of topic. It's very intersectional. How is the environment related to our health? Like, those are the few angles that you can take. How is environment related to economic and tax justice? That is also another way you can take, another aspect you can look at it. And another very prominent intersectionality will be the issues of sexual rights and reproductive rights. Yeah, SRHR, the intersectionality of the environment and reproductive rights. Like, these ways in which the topic on climate is intersecting with other topics is a way that you can make sure that you're writing your story in a way that it's fitting, and it's really like people are resonating with it, because let's agree, the environmental discourses and climate discourse is it's very technical. So the intersectionality aspect makes us able to relate, to make to write relatable stories. Yeah, so I would say those two things.
Okay, all right. Pamela, how do we continue to adapt our storytelling approach so that we can remain current and stay in vogue with happenings, especially in the digital space?
Thank you. And I think Sharon, you've shared some. So maybe one of the things that I'll say is stay updated. Stay updated with trends and technology. Because trends and technology, that is what is feeding everyone else is feeding. And that everyone else is whom we also want to talk to. So just stay updated with trends. How you stay updated with trends, the things that Sharon has mentioned. Have you subscribed to newsletters, follow news outlets, so watch news, just feed your soul. And then trends. AI is here to help us. When ChatGPT was launched, so last year, as a writer, we were just having conversations and it felt like a threat. But with time, we came to embrace it. It's actually here to help us. No one is going to be given an award, just as one of the speakers said, for doing the hardest work. It's here to actually help us, like reduce the workload on us and just help us. So embrace technology. Please embrace technology. And this I'm saying as, because if you go to these spaces, these digital spaces, TikTok, or like finding someone talking about climate, it's so rare because we have not figured that out. We have not cracked that code. And the moment we crack that code, I think we will be okay. How is it that a supermarket is able to sell whatever they are selling anywhere? Why can't we sell our stories, climate stories, just the same way? That is something that we need to be thinking over and over. And then this morning, I was just reading an article, what the Olympics could look like in 2048 if we continue destroying our environment. That was the title of that article. You who is seated here and listening to me right now, what's going through your mind when you see such a title of an such a title, what the Olympics could look like in 2048 if we continue destroying the environment? Olympics is something, it's a worldwide event, literally. Everyone resonates. When you mention Olympics, everyone would be like, yeah, yeah, talking about it. So someone is trying to go into the future. So even us in our storytelling, can we be futuristic so that it doesn't get you when you're not prepared? When you prepare ahead of time, because climate change is already here, everyone has experienced, they have seen it, they know. It's just a matter of now us letting them imagine the future, imagine what it could be if it was better or if it continues to be worse. These are things that we need to continue or thinking about, even as the world the world continues to, it's to be a complex space to exist in right now. So stay updated with AI, stay updated with what's happening, the trends, and be futuristic. Those are things that I feel like if you embrace the three things, you can stand out as a storyteller, even tomorrow, the next day, and you still remain relevant in the current world today. Yeah.
Mm. Okay, thank you. I don't know if Rebecca got the question.
No, I didn't. Could you repeat that?
Okay. All right. So the question is, how can we continue to adapt and evolve, our storytelling approach so that we can remain relevant and compelling, especially in this fast-paced digital world?
Okay. I would say I would go with what Pamela has already mentioned, which is just stay on trend, really. Right. There was a time that storytelling was just your parents telling you stories under the moonlight, right? And then that evolved into people writing letters, and then that evolved into digital products, books, and all of that. And that has even evolved a little bit further to storytelling through videos, right? And who knows what that is going to evolve into next, right? So I would say have an open mind, really. Don't be stuck on how the story is told. Just be more focused on telling the story. So when you discover a way that works better, adopt it, right? You're not here to be the advocate for storytelling by written letters. You must handwrite each of the stories and hand it out to people, right? You're not an advocate for that. You just want to tell stories. So if tomorrow you discover that the new way to get people's attention is to do videos, right? Even for someone like me, fun videos, of course I'm going to hop on that as well, right? Because I want people to hear what I have to say, because it's very important. So I would say the work that we do as storytellers, we should see it as important work, just like what Pamela has said for most part of the session today. It's important work, right? Because storytelling shapes society, it shapes culture, and it shapes the outcome of what history would look like, right? So you want to be the loudest voice in the room. You want, as much as people are complaining that, come on, people say people have short attention span, but yet people spend hours scrolling on TikTok. They spend hours on Instagram. What are they doing? Right? It means that people have attention for what they want to pay attention to. Right? It's not really a question of people lacking attention, right? It's more of how do I grab their attention, right? So at every point in time, you want to make sure that you're a good researcher. If you're going to tell good stories, you should be a good researcher. You should always be asking, how can I get people's attention, right? Your story is not always for everybody, right? Know your audience and always ask yourself that question: what would get my audience attention? And always be good at that. It's really that simple.
Okay, all right, thank you. I know that we've said a lot in like more than an hour plus, but then, of course, as a way of rounding up, as a way of saying, okay, we are almost at the tail end of everything. If you could advise someone, if you could advise a climate and environmental storyteller right now, what would that advice be? I'll start with Pamela. What would that advice be for that person? Your mic is muted.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks. So, as a newbie storyteller, as a storyteller in this space of climate change, of the most complex issues that we have as a people right now, as a continent, what I would advise you or in this space is serious doesn't mean, or complex as the climate is, doesn't mean you have to be use Times Roman font 12, black and white. So I'm just talking as we are telling ourselves the truth. As a climate storyteller, we tell ourselves climate change is complex and it's serious and it's, all those things that we tell ourselves and how it's been perceived. So please, when you come, when you in this space, let's move away from that. Serious doesn't mean it has to be those. Doesn't have to be everything has to be in font, in which font in Times New Roman. So you seem serious. If you go to Eco Mindset magazine right now, like the website, it's so playful. I used a font that is so playful, but I'm addressing very complex issues. Can we adopt that? I'm a master's student right now, and I'm always fighting with my tutor because I'm writing my research, and I'm just doing my research and even doing my assignments. I'm a storyteller. I'm a writer. If you're a writer, you can tell me this. When you're doing academic writing, and when you're already a writer and a storyteller out here, trust me, the mix is just two different things. Water and what? And oil. So I'm
They don't.
constantly fighting with my lecturers because I'm like,
Mm,
what? It's water. Why do we have to say hydro, whatever? I just like, but that's that space. And they have put it that way for a reason. So when you come to this other space of climate storytelling, we want to connect with people. Can we avoid jargon? Can we avoid all those things? People don't care. Like you have published 40% of wildlife are dead in Kenya. So what? So what?
mm,
Can your stories answer the so what question? For people to be able to relate to you and for you to just be able to put your stories out there. And one more thing is that our climate story our climate will be decided by the story we tell. And
mm,
humanity already knows. They know the climate change. Science has proven. There's everything. Like data is there. It's not something new that you're developing or coming up with. Those things are there. And people know. People have experienced climate change. Trust me, it's not news. So it's not that story. So what people want is, how can we be part of the solution? If we're able to provide people with solutions in our stories, trust me, that's what the world needs. The world just needs another story, and it just doesn't need
mm,
one story. We need a universe of stories. Can we create that?
mm.
Those stories of success, those stories of solutions, those stories of, we have this, of lightening people's hearts, and instead of bombarding people with news they already have. Yeah, in a nutshell.
All right. All right, Rebecca, can you like give an advice to storytellers?
Yeah, I would say if you are starting out as a storyteller, start now. I think that's the best
Mm,
advice I can give you. I wish someone told me that years later, years earlier rather. Start now. Start now. The best stories are the ones that are told. Really,
mm,
right? If you're going to, I mean, I have this belief that if you're going to tell a good story or if you're going to be a great storyteller, you have to first write out the bad stories, right? And until you get
mm,
to the good ones, right? And you're not going to be able to do that if you're just sitting and waiting for the perfect time. Trust me, your first story might not really be it. And that's fine, really. Everybody had a bad story. Everybody had a starting point, right? But you will not get to that place you want to be if you don't start. So start now, right? And just like that question that was asked before, where should I start from? Start from everything, right? Get as much information as you can get. right? Get as much, read. If you want to be a great writer, you have to be a very good reader. That's how writers are. That's how you learn words. That's how you learn how to express yourself better, right? So when you write, the more you write, the better you learn how to express yourself. So then you begin to see progress in your writing. So I would say the best advice would be to start. I know it sounds cliche, but really, trust me, start now, start now.
Okay, all right. Whatever it is that you're doing, start now. Sharon, what's your advice?
All right. As as a certified introvert, I have very few words. So
I did pick that from this
oh,
conversation.
my goodness. So mine will be fearless. Yeah, because for me, fear held me back for the longest time. So just be fearless. And once you start, you will realize how amazing you are. It was all in your head. And then the other thing will be know your audience, so
Yeah.
that you can speak to your audience directly. And then, because if you do not know your audience, you'll be speaking to everyone. And when you speak to everyone, you will not target anyone, you know. So
Yeah.
know the person that you want to target. For me, I like creating controversy and influencing policy. So I like speaking to the policymakers and just ruffling feathers. So I think when you understand who you want to speak to, it becomes a little bit more easier.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And for our audience from Mayor Kung, who joined us from Oyo State, thank you so much. From Jackson, thank you. Okweni from Ogun State, thank you so much. We also had Abib on the call. Thank you. He's from Kwara. From Gang, who is from Lagos and Jos, Nigeria. Thank you to Michael, to Emmanuel, to Shayat, to Alima, to Peter, to Adam, um, to the PH girl, although you didn't say your name. Thank you so much to Stephanie. Thank you so much. I cannot say thank you enough. And then peradventure I'm on this call. I'll listen to it later and I want to connect with you, Pamela, or I want to connect with you, Rebecca or Sharon. So how do I do that? What's the link? What's the name? LinkedIn, Facebook, where are you on? So that I can connect with you. Pamela, you can go first.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, the serious people. Okay, I'm not so serious though. As Pamela Okutoyi, just as my name. You can also find the Eco Mindset magazine. It's on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on X. Okay, Twitter. I keep saying X or Twitter. So on X, on Instagram, and Pam Writes. That's where, if you want to be a storyteller, a writer, that's where I inspire storytellers and also share tips on how to tell a good story. So if you're here, you are newbie in the market, you also just looking for inspiration or what kind of stories you can tell. If you're here, you're a business and you're looking at how to uh, put storytelling or use storytelling in your business to sell, to be able to just ensure your message gets to the right audience. Pam Writes on LinkedIn, it's a newsletter that I run, and I share a lot of tips and insights that can help you as well. So that's where you can find me. You can also Google me.
I love the way you say you can also Google it. Okay, all right, Rebecca, where can we
But
find you?
honestly, yeah.
Okay, you can find me on LinkedIn. Same name, Rebecca Lekwa. I also have a newsletter. You find that on my profile as well, the RA Storyteller, where I write stories that teach you about climate change and its effects. If you are in for a nice story, trust me, it doesn't look like the typical things you find. It's really just a story like every other one. So if you're in for that, you can check that out on LinkedIn, Rebecca Lekwa.
Okay, all right. Sharon, where can we find you?
All right. Pamela said something that is very Kenyan. You can also Google me. All right. So for me, you can find me on LinkedIn as Sharon Mutende, just like my name is, and also on X as at Sharon Mutende.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much. And you
Maybe
can also
Felicia.
find African. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to mention. If you allow me to mention here, I'm working on my current issue of the Eco Mindset magazine, and I know we have amazing storytellers here. So if you would love to collaborate, you're a storyteller who is here, you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. And also, if you have a story to share or you are in a business in the climate space, you can also reach out.
Okay, all right. That is Pamela cutting soap for you. If you're a Nigerian, you know what that means. She just cut soap for you. And like I said, African Climate Stories, we're on LinkedIn as African Climate Stories. We're on Instagram as African Climate Story. Do it to like, follow, and of course on YouTube as African Climate Story. You can subscribe and be rest assured that for all of you that commented, your comment, of course, will be displayed on all our social media platform as a way. This is our own way of telling you thank you, and this is our way of telling you that you're a part of our story. And be reminded that if you're looking for like stories or you're looking for inspiration, of course African Climate Stories is the place to be. You'll find a lot of inspiration. And of course, we're looking forward to hearing from you, your advocacy story, what kind of story you're telling, and also would like you to check our social media platform to get the link to the African Storyteller of the Month. That is our way of giving back to storytellers. You can also check that out and see, read up on people that are doing amazing things. Like I said, the pictures, the nuggets from this episode will be posted on our social media platform. There is a pidgin proverb that says that soup wey sweet no dey get too much water. Soup wey sweet no dey get too much water. In order for us not to have too much water in this sweet soup, I guess this is where we have to say, okay, we have done well and we have come to the end of the show. I cannot but say thank you to Pamela, thank you to Rebecca, and thank you to Sharon. You all have dropped amazing. Even if I am not a climate storyteller or a climate or an environmental storyteller, there is a drive, there is a push that you have instilled in not just me, but thousands of people that will be watching this and would like to say thank you so much. And we hope that in the nearest future, and when we extend our invitations to you, you'll be able to, come back and say, okay, we accept. I'm coming with full force. Thank you so much. How do you say thank you in a Kenya language?
Asante sana.
You say
Asante sana.
Asante Sana.
Yeah, say asa. It is, yeah.
Okay, all right. So Asante Sana. Thank you. What about Rebecca? You're from Cape Town, yeah? Your network
No, I'm
is not allowing
Nigerian
her to.
actually.
But this, okay, we'll talk about that later. So I'd like to say thank you. And Nigeria will say, like, let me say it in our three major languages: Eshe, now Gode, and Dalu. Thank you so much for joining us. It has really been impactful and it has been interesting hanging out with you ladies. Of course, when ladies gather, wisdom are bound to drop and solutions are bound to come up. Thank you so much. Jackson is saying well done to all of you ladies. Thank you so much. And then this is where I will say, let me go and drink water and drop cup. It has been yours truly, Felicia, your uncle. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time, ladies. Thank you. And to all of our audiences on YouTube, thank you so much. You guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much. Thank you. And we are grateful. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.